And viewers, in just a short while from now, of course, the hearing in the Supreme Court is going to begin on a number of petitions that are there against the Waqf law. After it received a President's assent and became a law, Supreme Court will now be hearing the challenge to Waqf Amendment Act today. The top court will be hearing a batch of about 70+ petitions, with notable petitioners being AIMIM Chief Asaduddin Owaisi, Amanatullah Khan of the Aam Aadmi Party, Arshad Madani of Jamiat Ulema-e-Hind, Manoj Kumar of RJD, All India Muslim Personal Law Board, among others. Advocate Hari Shankar Jain and one Mani Munjal are also among notable petitioners who have filed a separate petition challenging the constitutional validity of several provisions of the law, contending that they violate the fundamental rights of non-Muslims. In fact, a 3-judge bench comprising Chief Justice Sanjiv Khanna and Justices Sanjay, Kumar and KV Viswanathan will be hearing the petitions. The centre, in fact, on 8th of April had filed a caveat seeking a hearing before any order was passed in the matter. Let's go across to my colleagues who are in fact tracking the story very, very closely with our, they've been tracking the story very, very closely, and we'll be getting you all the latest updates from the ground, because in just a few moments from now, the Supreme Court will begin hearing this batch of pleas that are challenging the constitutional validity of the Waqf Amendment Act 2025. Remember, that was passed by the Parliament just earlier this month. So today, Supreme Court test for the Waqf law. It is a legal test, and we'll have to see what is going to happen. And the breaking update that we are getting right now is that hearing in the Supreme Court has begun. That's the latest update coming in. Let's now take a look at, viewers, the main arguments of petitions opposing the Waqf Amendment Act. Before we get you more reactions and an update from the Supreme Court, where the hearing has begun. That's the breaking update that we are getting for you. So these are some of the arguments of those who are opposing it. Interference in religious affairs of Muslims. Right to manage religious affairs are being violated through this Waqf Act. Apart from that, those who are opposing it say that it is an attack on the core values of secularism. This act discriminates against the Muslim communities. Not just that, another important opposition has been that they cannot have non-Muslim members in the Waqf board. Now that, remember, is a provision as well. That became a contentious issue. Removal of Waqf by user is wrong. That is another point that is being made by the opposition, by those who are opposing the Waqf Act. And the role of collector, they say, makes the government both litigant as well as the judge. So these are some of the arguments by those who are opposing the Waqf law in its current form after the amendments were made. We're getting a reaction from the petitioners, including Amanatullah Khan. Let's listen in.
ये सिर्फ और सिर्फ जो प्राइम लोकेशन और जो वक्फ की जो ज़मीन है उनको कब्ज़ा करना है, और गांव-गांव पूरे शहरों में इसके ज़रिए जो है आपस में फसाद कराना, झगड़ा कराना, ये एक मकसद है। जिस तरह से कानून लेकर आए हैं वो तो कहीं से भी जस्टिफाई नहीं होता।
सर, आप भी बोर्ड के चेयरमैन रहे हैं, पहले भी सुनने में आता रहा है कि जो बोर्ड से जुड़े लोग हैं, ज़्यादातर उन्हीं से जुड़े लोगों के कब्जे जो हैं इन संपत्तियों पर रहे हैं। आप क्या कहना चाहेंगे इस बारे में?
नहीं, देखिए, बहुत सारे, जैसे दिल्ली के अंदर 1977 प्रॉपर्टीज़ हैं, और मैंने 298 प्रॉपर्टीज़ का किराएदारी मैंने कराई थी, और बाकी इन लोगों ने मुझे करनी नहीं दी। 2200 कुछ किराएदार ऐसे हैं, 2228 किराएदार जो ये इन लोगों ने नहीं करने दिया। तमाम एजेंसियां पीछे लग गई, और हमने तो वेलफेयर के काम किए वहाँ। हम तो बेवाओं की पेंशन भी देते थे, गरीबों की मदद भी करते थे, लोगों को पढ़ाई के लिए पैसे दिए। दिल्ली दंगों में हमने काम किया, और जहाँ जहाँ ज़रूरत समझी, और ना हमने मजहब देखा। हमने तो हर किसी, चाहे वो हिंदू भाई हो चाहे मुसलमान हो, सबकी हमने वहाँ मदद की। और मैंने वहाँ रहते हुए ये महसूस किया कि जब मैं वहाँ था तो उस वक्त मैंने एक भी, जैसे 123 प्रॉपर्टी है, केंद्र सरकार ने नोटिफिकेशन जारी करके सारी अपने कब्जे में ले लिया था, तो मैं वहाँ था तो मैंने उसको चैलेंज किया, और वो सारी ज़मीनें वापस मिली। वो नोटिफिकेशन उनका रद्द हुआ और सारी ज़मीनें वापस मिली। कोर्ट ने माना, हाई कोर्ट ने माना कि जो एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन कंट्रोल है वो वक्फ का था और वक्फ का ही रहेगा। और अगर आप मानिए, जिस तरह का अब ये बोर्ड बना रहे हैं, जिस तरह इनके लोग हैं, अगर बीजेपी का आदमी वहाँ बैठा होगा तो आप उम्मीद कर सकते हैं कि वो इसको चैलेंज करेगा। और उसी के बाद जब मैं वहाँ से आ गया और एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन का कंट्रोल उस पर आया, तो शाही ईदगाह का जब मसला आया तो उसके सामने का पार्क और वक्फ बोर्ड का जो सीईओ है और जो डिविजनल कमिश्नर है, उसने जो एफिडेविट दिया कि ये ज़मीन हमारी नहीं है। ऐसी नखुंजी एक मस्जिद है उसके अंदर, महरौली के अंदर, उस पर इन्होंने एफिडेविट दिया। कई सारे पार्क हैं और कोर्ट में चलते हुए, जैसे लाल मस्जिद के पीछे का इलाका है, वहाँ पर एक पूरी बिल्डिंग इन्होंने बना दी, जबकि वो डिविजनल उसमें, जबकि वो चल रहा है, ट्रिब्यूनल में केस चल रहा है आज भी, और वो ले लिया। अब 123 प्रॉपर्टी है, ये एक बड़ा मसला है, इसको ये सरकार कब्जा करना चाहती है। और इसी तरह से पूरे मुल्क के अंदर न जाने कितनी प्रॉपर्टीज ऐसी हैं जो रेवेन्यू रिकॉर्ड में नहीं है, जो वक्फ बाय यूजर हैं, तो उसके अंदर विवाद पैदा करके ये लोग कब्जा करेंगे और कोई मकसद इनका नहीं है। तो मैं कह रहा हूँ कि मैं जब था तो सारे केसेस हमने जीते, और जब मैं नहीं था, जो हमारी प्रॉपर्टीज हैं उन पर भी क्लेम खत्म कर दिया। जब इनके लोग बैठेंगे और इनके ही ऊपर से सरकार किसी प्रॉपर्टी पे क्लेम करेगी, तो आप खुद सोचिए कि जो चेयरमैन है, जो इन्हीं का बिठाया हुआ है, बीजेपी की हुकूमत ऊपर से कोई क्लेम करे जमीन को, और इन्हीं का चेयरमैन उसको कैसे चैलेंज करेगा? कोर्ट भी नहीं जा सकता। और ये सारे मेंबर, जो ये मुस्लिम क्लोज है, जैसे इन्होंने पहले था कि इलेक्टेड एमएलए होना चाहिए, मुस्लिम इलेक्टेड एमएलए, मुस्लिम इलेक्टेड एमपी, जो ये मुतवल्ली था वो इलेक्टेड था, बार काउंसिल इलेक्टेड था, तो इलेक्टेड और मुस्लिम लफ्ज क्यों हटाया इन्होंने? ये इस पे समझने की जरूरत है। देखिए, इसलिए हटाया क्योंकि ये जानते हैं, जैसे दिल्ली है, दिल्ली में 4 एमएलए हैं मुस्लिम, चारों के चारों आम आदमी पार्टी के हैं। उत्तर प्रदेश में समाजवादी का है या कांग्रेस का है या आरएलडी का है। ऐसे ही हरियाणा में कांग्रेस के हैं, महाराष्ट्र में कांग्रेस के या दूसरी एनसीपी के हैं। तो
So that was Amanatullah Khan of the Aam Aadmi Party, one of the petitioners in this case. My colleague Priyank Tripathi is joining us live right now. Priyank, give us more details. Supreme Court hearing has begun in this particular case. There are about 73 odd pleas, I believe, that the Supreme Court is going to be looking at against and pro the Waqf law.
Yes, certainly. The hearing in this case has begun, where the Supreme Court has certainly asked that we will be looking into 2 aspects as of now, that whether this petition should be entertained by the Apex Court or this should be sent to the Delhi High Court. Since there are several petitioners, so the Supreme Court has also requested all these petitioners to maintain decorum in the court. And first of all, they would like to know that what are the points on which all of them intend to argue. This is the hearing which is being conducted in a 2 judges bench, where the CJI is heading this particular, hearing the batch of petition. Mr. Sibal is the first one who has started arguing, because he's the senior most counsel who have been appearing in this particular case. We have name of other senior lawyers like Kapil, Sibal, Rajiv Dhawan, Abhishek Manu Singhvi, C.U. Singh. These are the petitioners, along with the Solicitor General Tushar Mehta, who's also appearing in the behalf of the centre. Mr. Sibal is the first one who has started arguing, where he is talking about that my submission is upfront, that what should be the parliamentary legislation to infer and the essential of the integral part of the faith, and referring to Article 25 and 26. So basically, Mr. Sibal, who has started arguing as representing one of the petitioner, is arguing that this court should hear this matter with Article 25 and 26, because that could be an interference to something which has come up from the Parliament, because the Waqf Amendment Bill is now an act which has been passed from both the houses of the Parliament, and has also been given go-ahead from the President's note, the Gazette copy which came 2 weeks back. Mr. Sibal is also talking about that unwarranted interference into the religious affairs of the Muslim. So basically he's talking about that this act of the Parliament, which has been passed from both the houses of the Parliament, and has also got a note from the President, is unnecessary interference in the religious practice of any of the Muslims. So out of these 72 batch of petitioners who have moved to the Apex Court, the hearing has shortly begun. The bench is headed by the CJI himself, and Mr. Sibal, Kapil Sibal, who is one of the senior most lawyers, is arguing on the point that according to Article 25 and 26 of the Constitution, there should be interference of the Apex Court, because this is certainly something which has been intended to interfere unnecessarily in the religious practice which is being done by the Muslim. Yes, Hina?
Yes. Priyank, request you to stay on with us. Let me also now go across to my colleague Sabyasachi, who is live with us right now as well. Sabyasachi, as Priyank was also telling us, hearing has begun. There are about 73 odd petitions that the Supreme Court is going to be looking at. They are both anti as well as pro-Waqf law. And the latest update is that the Chief Justice of India has in fact asked the petitioners who have challenged the Waqf Act to first address this issue and tell the court as to whether it is important for the Supreme Court to hear this matter or it should be actually sent to the high courts. And now the latest is that it is Kapil Sibal, who is the first one, representing one of the petitioners there, who's speaking. Bring us up to speed with the points that he has raised so far.
Well, that's right. See, Mr. Kapil Sibal says that my submission is upfront. What is sought through parliamentary legislation is to interfere with essential and integral part of faith, referring to Article 25 and Article 26, which is the right to equality as well as the right to religious practice. Now, Kapil Sibal also says that unwarranted interference into the religious affairs of Muslim community. See, this particular point, which has been raised by every single Muslim organization or every single opposition party which has given a petition in the Supreme Court, and the same was raised by the opposition leaders in the parliament as well, stating that the certain amendments which has been made in the Waqf bill clearly interferes into the religious matters of the Muslim community. Now, Mr. Kapil Sibal went on to say that my submission is upfront. What is sought through parliamentary legislation is to interfere with essential and integral part of faith, referring to Article 25 and 26. And Mr. Kapil Sibal also points out that this is by and large the provision on which this act has to be stated. Please see the Section 3R of the Unified Waqf Management Act. Please see the definition of the Waqf. The Waqf means the permanent dedication by any person showing or demonstrating that he is practicing Islam for the last 5 years, or any movable or immovable property, provided it does not have any contrivance. That's why if I want to create a Waqf, I have to show I am practicing Islam from the last 5 years and show how the state decide whether how I am a Muslim or not, what is the contrivance here. So clearly this particular major point which several of the Muslim organization as well as opposition parties has raised regarding the inclusion of a non-Muslim into the Waqf board and giving a lot of power to the district collector, stating that the final call will be with the district collector. So this particular point is being raised by Mr. Kapil Sibal.
Interference into the religious affairs of Muslim community, violation of right to equality, violation of right to practice religion, violation of right to property. This is what Mr. Kapil Sibal has, spoken about so far in front of the Supreme Court bench that's hearing this matter. Requesting both of you to please stay on with us, Priyank as well as Sabyasachi. Even as the hearing is continuing, we are getting you minute-by-minute updates, viewers, on what's happening in the Supreme Court. Let's also hear this reaction coming in from another petitioner in this particular case.
देखिए, जो नया कानून बना है ये संविधान विरोधी है। फंडामेंटल राइट जो हमको दिया है हमारा संविधान, डॉक्टर बाबा साहब अम्बेडकर जो संविधान, जो हमारा फंडामेंटल राइट है, इसका गलत है। और जो हमारा पूर्व पुरुष ने जो संपत्ति अल्लाह के रास्ते में दान किया है, जिसलिए मस्जिद, मदरसा, खानका, ईदगाह, कब्रिस्तान के लिए दिया है, वो हमारा हक छीन रहा है। इसलिए हमने पिटीशन दर्ज किया है। सिर्फ फुरफुरा शरीफ से नहीं है, भारतवर्ष के हर जगह से दर्ज किया। सिर्फ मुस्लिम नहीं, हर धर्म के आदमी ने किया है, क्योंकि ये संविधान विरोधी है और हर धर्म के आदमी को चाहिए संविधान को जिंदा रखना।
Let's now go across to my colleague Mohit Bhatt, who's also joining us live right now for more on this. Mohit, what has been the reaction of the centre so far on these number of petitions that have been filed against the Waqf law, specifically in the Supreme Court?
Well, you see, the centre have been saying this, that it's the right of all these people, opposition parties, to go to Supreme Court, and Supreme Court will examine the law as per the legal provisions. So that is their right. But what the centre and the BJP has been saying, that all these political parties, all the clerics, they have all gone to the Supreme Court just for the sake of appeasement politics. Now, there is a race within the opposition parties that who will be becoming the most Muslim appeasement party, and perhaps that is why these parties are going to the court. But the government has been saying this, that a proper procedure has been undertaken by the government. A JPC was formed by the speaker. Then various consultations were done, and in this particular JPC, all the political parties made their representation. They met people from various communities. They met people from various walks of life. They met Muslim clerics. They met Christian priests. They met Hindu priests. So clearly, what the government says is that they are confident that they have passed all the scrutiny that has to be done for this Waqf amendment, and now it's up to the Supreme Court. Because it's the right of the opposition parties or anybody, they can move to the Supreme Court, and whatever they have their grievances, they can go. But then the BJP and the government also say that this is part of the appeasement politics, that certain individuals for their vested interest, for the sake of appeasement politics, have gone to the Supreme Court. But in fact, they know that Waqf amendment is need of the time. Waqf amendment is need of the poor Muslims, because in name of Waqf, certain people who were sitting at the helm were looting the land, and Waqf became synonymous to land loot. And we just spoke to Jagdambika Pal, the chairperson of the Waqf JPC. He also stated that a proper procedure was being taken. He said that various meetings took place. Whatever they were the concerns of the opposition parties in the JPC, they were including for 2 days. There were marathon discussion in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. A law has been duly passed by the parliament. The states cannot say that we will not implement this particular law in state. Yes, they have right to go to the court, but the court will also examine all the legal provisions what are there, and how exactly after all the due process the law has been passed. And hence the centre and the BJP says they are confident that this will pass the scrutiny of the Supreme Court. Back
right, Mohit, stay on with us. Let me go back to my colleague Priyank Tripathi for more on this. Priyank, updates coming in from the Supreme Court. It is still Kapil Sibal who is continuing with his opening remarks. He's also, in fact, made a point that, if somebody wants to donate some property, according to the new provisions, that person will have to show that that person is practicing Islam for last 5 years. And he's making that point that how can state really decide how whether that particular person is Muslim or not. So that is another point that the opposition had raised during the debates in the parliament, to bring us up to speed with some of the key points that Mr. Sibal has made just now.
Right, Hina, because Mr. Sibal has been talking about that how this is an interference in the religious practice of a practicing Muslim who has been practicing the Islam so for the last 5 years. And it is also talking about that how Waqf property is certainly something which is willfully donated by someone who is a practicing Muslim. And he is also talking about that how this is a violation to the right of practice of religious entities and violation of human right and property. Later, Mr. Sibal has also spoken that why it is important to look into the role of appointment of a collector, because Mr. Sibal says that since we know that the member of the Waqf board will also have the collector who is a government representative. So he's also talking about that the state government's wide role and the amendment in this kind of process is certainly distorting the principle of the natural justice, and it also makes the government both the litigant and the judge it's also shown to the cause. So basically, for the benefit of our viewers, Mr. Sibal is talking about why the Waqf petition should be heard by the apex court, because this is the petition which should be heard at the apex court. This is a viewpoint for which the bodies have moved to the apex court. The court also wanted to hear that whether this petition should be heard here in the Supreme Court or it should be transferred to the High Court. So Mr. Sibal, who's the senior most lawyer, is trying to summarize and make his point before the court, that these are the process which is certainly disrupting the process of the natural justice. This is a process, the Waqf Amendment Bill is which is an act by the parliament, is also interference in the right of a practicing Muslim. So in these few points, our viewers can understand that that is a basic crux of the argument which is being submitted. He is the first senior lawyer. There will be other lawyers who will be heard. So it's going to be an extensive hearing. This is what we can say.
Right. Priyank, request you to stay on with us. Let me go across to my colleague Deepankar as well, who's reporting live from outside the Supreme Court. In the Supreme Court, the hearing is underway. Deepankar, the sense we've got so far is that the Chief Justice of India, the Supreme Court bench, first wants to understand from the petitioners whether this matter needs a hearing by the Supreme Court or it should be sent to the higher courts. Tell us a little bit about what all can be expected in this first day of the hearing on this matter today.
Well, very clearly, the Supreme Court has raised the question whether the Supreme Court should hear the matters regarding the Waqf or it should be sent to the High Court. And the Supreme Court has also asked the counsels who are representing the petitioners to justify as to why, what argument should be made by them so that the Supreme Court should hear the matter. So we'll have to see as to what arguments are being made by the petitioners before the Supreme Court, where Mr. Kapil Sibal, who is one of the senior advocates in the Supreme Court and representing one of the petitioners, has said that this is a violation of right to equality and the right to practice one's own religion. So this is one of the main argument that has been made by Mr. Kapil Sibal before the Supreme Court. We have with us Mr. Imran Masood over here. Let's have a chat with him and try and understand what is his perspective regarding the entire thing. Sir, so clearly Mr. Imran Masood over here will be joining us within a minute, but the main point that is being raised by Mr. Kapil Sibal over here is that a violation is a right to the Waqf bill is a violation to the right of property and right to profess religion, right to manage their religious affairs. So these are the arguments that are being made in order to justify as to why the Supreme Court should continue with the hearing this matter and why this matter should not go to the High Court. Clearly more senior advocates who are also present there, who are also representing the other petitioners, will be coming up with their own arguments before the Supreme Court. But we'll have to wait and watch as to what further argument is made. We are joined with Mr. Imran Masood, who is one of the petitioners in the matter regarding Waqf board. So the argument ये बोला जा रहा है कि क्या कहते हैं, हाई कोर्ट ये मैटर जाए या सुप्रीम कोर्ट मैटर जाए, और कपिल सिब्बल साहब जो अंदर मौजूद हैं उन्होंने ये बात बोली है कि क्या जो ये वक्फ बिल है ये राइट टू प्रोफेस रिलीजन के अगेंस्ट जाता है, इसमें आप क्या कहेंगे?
बिल्कुल जाता है। देखिए, आप हमारे अधिकारों को, वक्फ बोर्ड और वक्फ दोनों चीजें अलग अलग हैं। आपने सब चीजें एक नैरेटिव बनाने का काम कर दिया। वक्फ बोर्ड इतना पावरफुल था कि वो पार्लियामेंट पे भी कब्जा कर सकता था, भारत मंडपम पे भी। तो फिर आज अगर वक्फ बोर्ड इतना मजबूत था तो फिर वक्फ बोर्ड के खिलाफ आपने आदेश किया। सारे वक्फ बोर्ड आपकी पैरोकारी करने के लिए जहां जहां आपकी सरकारें हैं सारे कोर्ट में आ गए। तो वक्फ बोर्ड तो हमेशा सरकार के अंडर में रहा है, और आपने तो वक्फ के ऊपर कर दिया कि ट्राइबल मुस्लिम को आप वक्फ नहीं करने देंगे, उनके अधिकारों को आप रोकने का काम करेंगे। हमारे एमपी अहमदान साहब लक्षद्वीप से, उनके ऊपर ये पाबंदी आयद हो गई कि वो वक्फ नहीं कर सकते। वक्फ हमारा धार्मिक फरीजा है जो पर्सनल लॉ का है, और पर्सनल लॉ की हमें आजादी संविधान ने दी, आपने उसके ऊपर चोट करने का काम कर दिया।
सर, अंदर ये भी दलील दी गई है कि और जो अलग धर्मों के लोग हैं जिनको वक्फ में जोड़ने की बात की जा रही है वो भी गलत है, उस पे आप क्या कहेंगे?
नहीं, तो आप एक बात बताइए, किसी और धर्म को, या आपसे मैं सवाल करूं कि मैं सनातन के बारे में कुछ बता पाऊंगा, या मुझे आप किसी सनातन बोर्ड के अंदर रखेंगे तो मैं वो काम नहीं कर पाऊंगा जो काम आप कर सकते हैं। उसके लिए आपका हिंदू होना जरूरी है, बहुत सारे रिचुअल्स ऐसे हैं जो आप समझ सकते हैं। इसी तरीके से वक्फ है, वक्फ वो मुसलमान ही समझ सकता है, इसीलिए ये शर्त रखी गई थी कि मुसलमान होना चाहिए। वक्फ को आपको समझ में आया नहीं, आपको पता कुछ है नहीं, आप छोटी सी बात नहीं बता सकते इंसान के, मुसलमान के लिए इस्लाम के अंदर के पाकी और नापाकी क्या है, आप नहीं बता पाएंगे कि पाकी और नापाकी में क्या फर्क है, किन स्थिति में पाक रहते हैं, किस स्थिति में नापाक रहते हैं, कौन सी चीज पढ़ने के बाद नापाक हो जाएगा और कौन सी चीज पढ़ने के बाद पाक हो जाएगा। तो आप बेसिक चीज नहीं बता पाओगे, आप वक्फ के बारे में क्या जान लोगे? ये बुनियादी चीज है, इसके ऊपर कोई बुरा मानने की चीज नहीं है, इसके अंदर बुरा मानने की चीज नहीं है। तो वक्फ वही कर सकता है जिसके पास उसके लीगल राइट्स हो, वक्फ हो ही नहीं सकता इसके बिना।
सर, अभी आपकी क्या उम्मीदें हैं? ये जो मैटर चल रहा है इससे क्या उम्मीदें हैं आपको कि किस तरीके से रिलीफ आप लोगों को मिलेगा? इसमें
हमें मिलेगा 100% इंशाल्लाह। अल्लाह की हमें उम्मीद है सुप्रीम कोर्ट से, चूंकि यहाँ न्याय के मंदिर में न्याय की गुहार आए हैं।
So this was Imran Masood, who was clearly showing that they have belief in the Supreme Court, in the justice that is there, and that justice will be done with him. For now, the matter is currently going on. The matter is currently underway, and the arguments are being presented by the petitioners before the Supreme Court as to why the Supreme Court should hear this matter and not the High Court. And we'll have to wait and watch whether notice is issued to the government and a reply is sought from it, or further arguments are heard. So we'll have to wait and watch as to what further happens in the court. But currently the submissions are being made before the Supreme Court.
So,
over to you.
Deepankar, there getting us first reaction from Imran Masood as well, Congress MP, who's also one of the petitioners, who in fact tried to suggest that a narrative was created that Waqf boards are quite powerful, and he was raising objections to certain provisions, in fact, in the Waqf law. Let me go back to my other colleagues as well, who are bringing to us fastest updates from the Supreme Court as the hearing in this case is currently going on. Let me go across to Sabyasachi now. Sabyasachi, this hearing is also significant because against the Waqf law, we have seen protests taking place in different parts of the country. Of course, the day it was passed, the day the bill was passed in the parliament, there were celebrations erupting too in some parts of the country. But in some parts, especially in Bengal, the protests took a violent turn. So whatever the Supreme Court decides today is perhaps also going to give us a direction as to which way are things headed, isn't it?
Well, that's right. See, if you talk about certain states and certain political parties like the Trinamool Congress, like the DMK, they have very categorically said that they won't be, they would be making sure that the Waqf bill and the Waqf law is not applied in their own state, like the state of West Bengal and the state of Tamil Nadu. So strong objection against the Waqf law has been shown by several of these opposition leaders and the opposition parties. Meanwhile, that is the reason why overall, if you see, around 70 petitions have been filed in the Supreme Court. Now, Mr. Kapil Sibal, who point by point is mentioning that what is unconstitutional in this Waqf bill, there are several clauses which are questionable. The inclusion of a government officer, which is the district collector, who would decide whether the property is Waqf or not, whether the center would decide if he or she is a Muslim or not. So these are some of the points which Mr. Kapil Sibal is mentioning in front of the court. Now, a lot would depend on the Supreme Court and on its decision, because continuously all of these opposition parties are very much hopeful that the Supreme Court will give a verdict in their favor. The Supreme Court will uphold the constitution, which the opposition parties time and again has been mentioning that the central government, by passing the Waqf bill, has bulldozed the constitution. They have been calling it unconstitutional. Whereas on the other hand, if you see the counter which has come in from the centre government clearly mentions that the Waqf bill, the way it has been discussed in the Rajya Sabha, in the Lok Sabha, no other bill in the past have been discussed so much. In fact, the JPC, the time of meeting the JP had taken place in the JPC, and also the notices which has been given from collected from various parts of the country regarding the Waqf bills clearly shows that how the central government has heard voices from different parts of the country while making these amendments, and that is the reason why once the bill was passed in both the houses, the president have given the assent. So clearly there was celebration.
I'm just interrupting you there. Request you to stay on with us. More updates coming in from inside the Supreme Court as the hearing is going on. For more, let me quickly go across to Priyank Tripathi. Priyank, there was an intervention by the Chief Justice of India as well, when Mr. Kapil Sibal was making certain points about, how this became a law by the Parliament.
Yes, certainly, Hina, Mr. Sibal is trying to make his point that this is certainly an intervention to the religious faith of around 200 million Muslims who are staying in the country. Mr. Sibal is also talking about that how this is totally interruption in the religious practice of any Muslim of the country. So the Apex Court also, the CJI also spoke in this particular matter that if the property was already a monument or that was Waqf, how is it going to make too much of difference? And Mr. Sibal is also talking about that how a non-Muslim's intervention in the the Waqf, council is gonna create a problem in the near future. A similar kind of line was also told by Imran Masood, who was talking to our colleague, because what they are talking that any person who is a non-Muslim cannot understand the Waqf law. But it is for the fact that Islam is a documented, everything the practicing Muslim follow the religious book, and everything is being done according to that. So anyone who reads the Quran can understand that what could be the interpretation of that particular religious practice. That is the point which the Congress party has not been talking about in public. What narrative they have been trying to build up, although it's an act by the parliament, that it is an interference in the religious practice of a Muslim. Similar kind of thing is also being apprised to the court, where the two judges bench have been hearing this matter. While Mr. Sibal has been talking, and he was talking about that this is completely an takeover on the Islamic practices which is being done in the country. The CJI also, had put in one more important point, that if the property was already in the hand of the ancient act, then how is it possible that this is going to affect the Waqf?
Right.
If it's called a Waqf property, how is it making a difference to the life of a normal individuals? So the argument is still continuing. As we know, there have been series of senior lawyers and bunch of petitioners. So we are expecting that further argument will once again going on. So that is what Mr. Sibal has said, that the Central Waqf Council under 1995 Act, all nominees were Muslims. I have the chart, all Hindus and Sikhs were not part of it, and this is what is going to have an impact on the faith of 200 million Muslims in the country.
Right. Also, Dipankar, a big charge by Mr. Kapil Sibal, who says that the law is a parliamentary usurpation of the faith of 200 million individuals of this country.
Well, yes, it is very clearly a big allegation that have been made by by Kapil Sibal, that it is against the religion of 200 million people, where he has also said that by including people outside of the Muslim religion in the Waqf Council, it becomes it is a usurpation. Basically, it is you are taking over the Waqf that is there for these Muslim people. So this is a very clearly a very big allegation that has been made by Kapil Sibal against the Waqf law that has been made, the Waqf bill that has come in, and it has also been pointed out that these by including these people, like you heard Mr. Imran Masood saying that people do not know as to what are the nitty-gritties of the Islamic religion, and if you include these people, there will be some problems that may be faced by the Waqf board. So these are the allegations, these are the submissions that are being made against the Waqf bill, where it is being said that it is clearly a usurpation of the fundamental rights by parliamentary enactment. So this is a very clearly big allegation, big submission that has been made by Kapil Sibal before the Chief Justice of India. The hearing is still ongoing, and further submissions are being made by Mr. Kapil Sibal, but we'll have to wait and watch as to what further submissions have been made and what is the outcome of the hearing that is being heard by the Chief Justice of India before the regarding the Waqf bill. So we'll have to wait and watch as to what further arguments are made.
Right. Dipankar, stay on with us. Let me go back to Priyank as well, who continues to be with us. We have my colleague Sabyasachi also live with us right now. Priyank, now that is a big allegation that has been made by Mr. Kapil Sibal, who's representing one of the petitioners in this particular case, that Parliament is going to snatch away it's like parliamentary usurpation of the faith of 200 million individuals in this country. Earlier, he spoke about Sambhal. Then he also cited the Ayodhya judgment.
Yes, that's a big breaking input which we are getting, Hina, that in this Waqf amendment bill now, which is enacted by the Parliament, where a bunch of petitions have appeared, Kapil Sibal has once again raised the issue of Ayodhya judgment. So he's quoting up from the Ayodhya judgment, which is certainly symbolic, that if the rights of Hindus can be protected, then why isn't so that the Waqf right, which is right related to around 200 million Muslims, should be protected. After the Sambhal hearing which happened at the Apex Court. Now Mr. Sibal has once again quoted the Ayodhya judgment in this particular hearing, which is going on before the two judges bench headed by the CJI himself at the Apex Court. Mr. Sibal, Kapil Sibal is talking about that Ayodhya judgment upheld Waqf by users as a matter of Islamic faith. So that is big statement coming out from Mr. Kapil Sibal, where he is talking about that this is subtly an interference in the right of the practicing Muslim, and if the Ayodhya judgment was there, that similar kind of thing and treatment should also be given in the case of Waqf Act.
Right. Stay on with us, Priyank. Sabyasachi, now, of course, it will be important to see and hear the observations by the Chief Justice of India, by the Supreme Court bench that's hearing the matter first. And the most important issue, of course, is going to be that whether it is Supreme Court that should hear the petitions or the matter should be sent to the High Courts. That's going to be point number one. But I want to talk to you a little bit about, the multiple petitions that have also been filed by 6 BJP-ruled states in support, of the Act's constitutionality. Because this day is important because the Supreme Court is hearing the batch of petitions which include both in favor of the Waqf law as well as against the Waqf law.
Well, that's right. Several petition, in fact, has been given, which, in fact, supports the Waqf law. But several of them has been, in fact, given against the Waqf law. See, Imran Masood, who was just speaking to our colleague, in fact, a few days hour, and I will do the treatment. And Imran Masood himself later gave a clarification that what he meant was that when the Congress party will form the government, they just need one cabinet meeting, and in that cabinet meeting itself, they would cancel the Waqf law. Now, this has been the stand of the opposition right from the beginning when the Waqf bill was brought in for the discussion in the JPC itself. We had seen that several hours of discussion went through the JPC. Around 1 crore of representation on Waqf came to the JPC. No such bill ever has been scrutinized the way the Waqf bill has been scrutinized, and that is the reason why in some of the BJP-ruled states, support has poured in from the Waqf bill. In fact, on the day the Waqf bill was passed, at that day also several hundreds of visuals coming in from different parts of the country showing that people from the Muslim community are supporting the Waqf bill, stating that this particular bill is very much important because their rights are being snatched away by some of the upper caste Muslim. Their lands are being snatched away under Waqf, and there is no record of it. Neither they can go to any of court of law and question it. So these are some of the major points that the central government has definitely amended in the Waqf bill. But clearly the main point which the opposition maintains is that the Waqf bill is unconstitutional, and the important charge is that some of the clauses, in fact they also say that clause by clause discussion on the Waqf bill never had taken place at the JPC, and that is the reason why the opposition leaders and the opposition parties have continued their agitation against the Waqf bill, calling it unconstitutional.